Right. So today on the wild side, I'm joined by Shannon Benson who's based in South Africa, amazing wildlife filmmaker, photographer, and conservationist, who I had the pleasure of meeting. I think is it about 3 years ago now?
Yeah,
When we were when you guys, you and Russell were in Kabini shooting for National Geographic on the real black leopard. Great to see you again, Shannon. It's been a while.
Yes, how the time has flown by.
I know.
Feels like a lifetime ago, but also not that long.
For sure.
Yeah.
But today I want to kind of, because I think you've had a really kind of interesting, I guess, career path to kind of in terms of where you are now. Originally from Australia, and I think, you know, what's interesting is, you know, you describe yourself as a sort of mad, crazy reptile lover. You had reptiles as pets. So I guess you had a real interest in kind of natural world, you know, from a kind of young age. But you've worked in a creative industry, but in graphic design and kind of art direction. You also ran, you know, one of the things when I was kind of doing a bit of research is you also ran your own business, photographing pets. And so it'd be really interesting to sort of understand from you how that kind of foundation has kind of really helped you in the way that you've kind of developed and kind of, you know, I guess, you know, changed careers really. So it'd be, you know, just talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, I discovered photography along the way, so it wasn't sort of a decided career path, but I definitely always had that need to be creative. And so like you said, I went down the path of graphic design as a job. And then I kind of happened to discover photography. And so, of course, the subject was going to be my pet reptiles and wildlife in general, because that's always been a constant passion since I was tiny. And so the combination seemed to make sense. And I found that I enjoyed it so much more. And I'd also got to a point in my career of graphic design where I was art directing, but more managing other designers, and you know, it's not as creative as you kind of want it to be anymore. You're managing people more, and so I found that I enjoyed it so much, and I, over the years, just you know, I'm not formally trained, but just went out and practiced and made lots of mistakes and tried lots of things. And then eventually I realized that I wanted to make that my career path. And so very, very gradually worked towards being able to leave my job in graphic design. And one of the ways that I was able to do that is by starting this business, Wet Nose Photos. And you know, so I was doing commercial pet photography. So basically I would spend 2 hours like running around the beach or a dog's favorite park, or it was generally, you know, most of the time outdoors and just very natural. And it was an amazing foundation for me to really hone my skills in tracking moving subjects while still having a little bit of control, because of course I have you know, a pack around my waist full of treats, and I've got the speaker on my camera. So, you know, I had that little bit of control, and so it made for a really nice mix of, you know, kind of portraits and action shots, and really honing my skills with animal photography in general. And then I ran that for 7 years. And actually, before I moved to South Africa, I was running it across so the east coast of Australia. So I had two other photographers on staff at that point. So there's a huge market and potential there. And, you know, as a pet owner myself, I can absolutely, you know, justify why it's so valuable to have, you know, really nice quality pet photos, but also it gives the opportunity for the owner to be in them. Like I would be very candid. I wouldn't sort of do pose shots, but you know, there's always some really special moments with the owners, which of course you can't get if you're the owner taking the photo.
Yeah.
So that was so much fun, so much fun. And I mean, moving to Africa was kind of a pretty sudden decision.
Yeah.
And I kind of realized, obviously, that I couldn't run the business while I'm over here. So I decided to kind of wrap that up. But yeah, really solid foundation for me. And so I've been shooting for 18 years now. So that was like a 7-year chunk where I feel like it really solidified definitely my action work.
And I think that's interesting, isn't it? Because I think, you know, one of the things that, you know, I found difficult, you know, I love to travel and love to go to Africa and Alaska, but clearly when we couldn't travel, it was tough. But actually one of the interesting things that I did, you know, when I was back in London was actually just go into the local parks and keep just practicing. And I think you I know you've mentioned that before, is, you know, it's kind of how you can kind of practice and understand lighting particularly when animals are moving, just kind of is kind of important. And I think the other thing that I think you are, and maybe again your early career has been invaluable, is just that eye for composition, which you know, and the sort of design, and I think that's another such an important element, which, you know, clearly has, you know, has really kind of helped you.
Yeah, I definitely, that strongly influences how I see things, because back when I was a graphic designer, it was print. It was, you know, the internet was just coming into fruition. And so, you know, when I had my career, I wasn't doing websites and that kind of thing. It was all, you know, print based media. And so, you know, we're really thinking about, if I'm working with other people's images, I have to account for, you know, like a middle spread of a magazine and space for text to come over it. But what I found is I really like the use of negative space and sort of very strong compositions, even without all of that, if it's not, you know, necessarily relevant for, I mean, certainly when I shoot now, it's not the assignment to have to think about that, but it's kind of ingrained now, and and very much my style and how it's influenced how I shoot. And I like really, you know, vivid color, and I like to shoot very shallow most of the time. So, you know, it took me a few years to develop into that style, but it's I think, yeah, all these life experiences and preferences that kind of come together, and then it becomes intuitive when you're doing it long enough, where you kind of get past thinking about the technical side. So you get so comfortable in the settings that now you have this real creative freedom to like really see through the viewfinder and see everything. And, you know, if that's like a little change in perspective that changes the whole image, you know, it allows you to kind of bring all those natural choices that I don't kind of realize that I'm making anymore, that I feel like makes my work mine.
Yeah. And then, you know, I guess when you said you moved to South Africa, I think, was it 2013? And I mean, you know, that was a pretty significant kind of leap for you. And I know at the very beginning, you know, you've talked about the fact that because you didn't have a body of work, you were kind of working for free. And, you know, so how long did it take to kind of, you know, build your reputation up and, you know, I guess get the first amount of paid work, you know?
Yeah. I feel like looking back now, it was I sort of started to see the fruits of the labor maybe 3 years in.
Yeah.
So by the time I moved here, I'd been shooting as my job for 10 years. So coming here, I got to kind of a comfortable position. So on one hand, I was really ready for, I felt a bit stagnant and I was ready for a change.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's kind of like back to the beginning, start again.
Yeah.
I mean, at least you've got the technical skill, but certainly all the business connections and the networking, and I'd established my work there. And yeah, I came and started all over again, and it was kind of a sudden decision. So I didn't have an opportunity to kind of lay some groundwork and network before I got here. I kind of just turned up, and I'd sold everything I owned, had a little bit of savings, like a little bit, and I ran out in the first year. And then yeah, I feel like so much free work, but
And would you do it differently if you, or are you kind of happy with how it kind of worked out?
It's tricky because I feel like it was necessary.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I look back and it was a heavy price that I paid, which was with my health along the way, which I still pay for now. So it's like a double-edged sword, because I don't know how else I would have done it. Thank goodness for social media, was coming in, and that was really, really helpful to network, and such a, like Instagram, for example, such a visual medium to get my work out there kind of in this new environment. And I know I spent a lot of time fostering that when I first got here, especially. But yeah, it's the what if, like it is what it is. And I don't regret the journey, and I don't regret any of it. I kind of just wish it wasn't so hard. Like I wasn't so sick all the time, or if it's injuries or whatever. It would have been nice if it was a smoother ride, but at the same time, I think that's part of why I value it so much as well. And as you progress in your career and in life, you just, some of the things you have to learn the hard way and for yourself. And one of those things was like slowing down and listening to my body and finding balance. Like I said, I don't know if it would have been nice to have the balance that I have now back then, but then I don't know if it would have led to here. So
I mean, I think sort of listening to kind of, I know we've talked before, but the sort of I guess one of the is the sort of perseverance and the passion that you have to have is absolutely key, because it's not an easy, I think being a wildlife filmmaker, being out in the field, it's not an easy life. No. And I think
that has to be the foundation for it, I think, is that passion. And then adding that perseverance if you want to make a career out of it. Because the other factors that come with it, like the appearance of what it seems like, or money, or any of those other things, that are not going to hold you over as a motivator for as long as I think you need to. So there's easier ways.
I know. So I know we've talked about the challenges, but also I'd be really interested to know from your perspective, the years that you've been doing it, what's been the sort of greatest experience that you've kind of have, as on the journey,
there's been so many incredible moments, and I've been so lucky to go so many cool places. So it's really hard to pick, but highlights for me is definitely the Arctic, and seeing my first polar bear and photographing in it. And I've been to the Arctic a few times since, but my first trip was still hands down my best polar bear sighting, and what I feel like is the best images that I've got from the Arctic.
Wow.
So I mean, I am not a fan of the cold by any stretch of the imagination. And so I was a little apprehensive. I mean, I got the opportunity to go. So, and I started leading workshops there. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to, like, I really want to do this, but it's, I'm gonna have to suck up the cold part. And actually it was, I mean, you're obviously prepared, you have all the layers and all
but
the
it's
gear.
the layers, isn't it? I remember sometimes because the time I went there, it was the 24-hour, it was the time of year when it's 24 hours.
Yes, me too.
I just remember after a few days, you were just like, oh, please, not a polar bear at sort of 5 in the morning, and it was just like
2 o'clock in the morning, always. Like,
and I was sharing with a friend, and she would just say, just see how far it is. So I would literally have to sort of, and I was like, oh, I think we've got another 10 minutes or something. Just like,
I know. And honestly, if you haven't been there, you can't relate to this conversation.
I know,
at
as
all.
much as you want to see a polar bear, you're like, oh, it's miles away.
You're exhausted. Your whole body clock is out. The whole circadian rhythm goes out the window. Even though you're on a ship and you have the blackout curtains, you never have that dawn and dusk to tell your brain it's end of day and it's time to go to bed. And so the sleeping schedule is, and of course, like you said, everything interesting happens like literally in the middle of the night, and I need my sleep. So. And I'm also there trying to lead all these people, so I have to be
you can't have that.
I can't be grumpy.
I think you're right. Svalbard is one of the places I'd love to go back to, just because the light and I've never seen, the scenery is just almost as spectacular when you see those glaciers and
absolutely.
it's
I mean, I was blown away by that, because it was, and especially when you get to the pack ice, and then it's just like, it seems like that's as far as you can see, and it's like there's nothing there, but it's so beautiful, like the colors and the light and the textures. And it's just, I didn't expect to be so blown away by it as what I was. Like, I was really in awe. Like, every different place we went was magical. It's like out of a storybook. So that was beautiful. And then Komodo dragons, I have to say.
I know, I was just going to say sort of the extremes from the sort of cold to the heat, but hopefully I'd love to share the sort of the video that you and Russ put together. But when you see you filming, you can absolutely, it's a kind of visceral just how excited you are, really.
I was so happy. I mean, they're so impressive. It's like walking around with a dinosaur, and being a reptile lover, so I've got that part where I'm just so happy anyway. But the fact that they're so massive and impressive, and so I've been there twice. And so the first time I was only taking photographs, I hadn't started venturing into filming yet. And then the first time I never saw them on the beach. And of course, I've seen the pictures, I've seen the documentaries where they're like walking around on the beach, and it's just like, is this even real? And so the second time that I went, which was when the Red Collective was filmed, it was like one of those bucket list items where they were literally, there's a few of them, and they're just walking in that water, and it's like lapping at their, at their claws, and just magic. I want to go, definitely want to go back, and I want to see and film them doing the mating fights where they get up onto their back legs, but it's always been a different time of year than what I've been there.
So besides that, is there, I'd be sort of intrigued, what is there anything else on your bucket list in terms of what you'd love to film?
Yeah, so much. So I haven't been to South America at all.
Right.
So Galapagos, Pantanal, Amazon in general. I would love to see jaguar. I would love to witness the jaguar hunting Cayman. But I know I'm going to be really torn, because I'm going like, I don't know whether to go for the Cayman. I just want to see the Cayman, like, but at the same time,
Yeah.
it's this incredible,
Yeah.
mix of power and behavior. It's so unique. And then Galapagos has been literally at the top of my bucket list since I began watching documentaries. And I really want to see marine iguanas and the lava lizards and the pink iguana, land iguana there. Like, and then, that was always like the draw card for me. And then, of course, over the years, I've learned more about like all the marine life around there. And I know it's like really cold water. So I'm like still apprehensive in my mind.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be totally worth it to, get a nice thick wetsuit and go under. And I would love to film the marine iguanas, going down and munching.
Oh
and
yeah, that would be awesome.
there's like seals and turtles and sharks and so much cool stuff. So yeah.
So with Russell, your husband, who is also a renowned filmmaker, how do you? So clearly, I know you work together on certain projects, but you also work separately. I mean, and how does that kind of work? I mean, how do you? Because I know the other thing that you've also said, which is again that probably for a period of time you didn't have a home because you're constantly traveling. So it'd be just to kind of how does that work?
Yeah, that was so it ended up being about 5.5 years that we didn't have a home base. So when I first moved here, we were renting a little place, and then of course we weren't working as much because we're starting to try and establish ourselves. And then once we started doing all this work, but it's free work, so we couldn't afford to have a rental, but we're also like traveling so much that it didn't make sense to try to hold on to anything. So we basically just had stuff at my in-laws, so Russ's parents.
Yeah.
And it just kind of ended up being like our kind of pick up and stop and change gear and wash some clothes and all that kind of stuff for about 5.5 years. I spent a bit more time there due to some illness and injury over that time, some longer chunks, but for the most part we were out traveling sort of constantly. And then just by chance we finally got a place again, so a rental, and it happened to be February pre-pandemic. And I just, the timing was amazing.
Oh my God.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
That we just finally got to the point where we're like, yep, we're ready to like have a base somewhere and kind of settle a little bit and have our own space. And I'd just done the Nat Geo Live tour in the January into the Feb, and then I came back for a month, moved into this place, was here maybe 2 weeks, couple of weeks, and then had to go back over to the US to do one show for Nat Geo Live and in March. And so it was like right as things were getting really bad, but we didn't quite know how bad. So it was still on. And I went over and did this one show and came back, and literally later that week, South Africa shut its borders and kind of everywhere, the whole world shut down.
Yeah.
And so I was so lucky that I actually got to come back and get then to our own space. Like the timing was crazy.
Yeah.
Because I could have been stuck in the US for a long time, it turned out. And then, very fortunate to then have lockdown and actually have a home and somewhere to stay. And it's in the bush.
Have a home. And I guess, what has it been like for a couple that are almost like constantly on the move, that you've had to, I mean, I know that there's been opportunities to film locally, but I guess it's kind of, it's been a moment where you've just had to kind of slow down and I guess as things build up, how has that maybe, change your perspective or, kind of Yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, before I moved to South Africa and really got into this kind of transient lifestyle, I naturally am the kind of personality that likes routine and likes to know what's kind of happening and have things planned out. Um, and so it took quite a few years to like properly adjust to that traveling lifestyle and learn to go with the flow and that things change at the last minute. You know, so not to hold on to plans too tightly. And it's a real shift in mindset. And so when this happened, it was kind of this forced break that I personally really needed. So for me, I definitely needed the slowdown, the forced slowdown.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I adjusted quite nicely to that. So now we're starting to go the other way, and I'm like, I've got like this mental battle of, but I'm really like comfortable.
Yeah.
I'm used to like, this is, you know, how my day is going to go, and I sleep here, and I know I'm going to have a hot shower.
Yeah.
So like all the things that you're like, oh
It's the
wow, am I going to
simple
get that? I'm
thing.
used to now.
Yeah.
So I've gone totally soft,
Yeah.
because now it's been like a year and a half, and I'm very, very used to it. And I have my kitty cats and my comfortable bed. And so yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's definitely a mind shift to, on one hand, I'm excited to like start traveling again and do it in a balanced way so that I
Yeah.
can, you know, obviously try to maintain that, because I tend to go either 150% or I'm at like 20% and I
Yeah.
can't do anything. Um, but I definitely am kind of in a pretty nice, comfortable zone at the
Yeah.
moment.
So what's
Yeah.
going to be, what are your, do you have projects kind of lined up for next year? Can you see what's
Yeah.
kind of ahead? Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a few different things in the pipeline. I and not things that I could
Yeah. Yeah.
publicly obviously
Yeah.
talk about. But yeah, there's definitely some projects. It's going to be a busy year again. And certainly busier for me compared to like Russ, like we were chatting before, has been very, very busy
Yeah.
locally. You know, filming around here because we are in the bush, which is really nice. And then more recently, you know, throughout Africa. Whereas I've done some stuff locally, but I haven't traveled much at all actually. So it's all been in country. So yeah, I'm looking forward to you know, moving around a little. I mean, even if it's just within Africa, we have some further afield plans, if all goes well.
Yeah.
But even just, you know, I'm so keen to get back to Botswana. I miss the Delta. I would love to go back there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kenya again. I mean, as you know, I mean, it's just magic. So whether it was for a shoot or not, I feel like it's been forever now. So
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
and I think the other thing about, I guess, your work, Shannon, is you know, you've referenced that you feel diversity of what you do is important, and you know, besides the filmmaking, the photography, but you also run a jewelry business that kind of heavily supports a number of, is it 11 different charities that
So it's
bracelet?
11 bracelets, technically 12 charities.
Yeah.
There's one bracelet that we support two charities of the same, which is for the ground hornbill conservation.
Yeah.
And then so we have our 12th bracelet coming out in the new year, hopefully, if all goes to
Amazing.
plan.
And you know, so that, I mean, again, that business kind of started almost through personal hardship when you know, you suffered the injury, your you know, you've talked about your body just shutting down when you were in the Masai Mara. But you know, what is incredible is that something incredible, you know, positive came out of, I guess, that sort of enforced kind of the rehabilitation and everything.
Yeah.
And you know, it's an amazing business. And how much have you raised so far for the
So we tally once every 6 months. So we're coming to the end of the year, so we're about to update it. So last count was almost 30,000 US dollars, but that will obviously update once we go through and work out the last 6 months.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So we're small. It's
Yeah.
definitely I have big goals for it, and that's kept me busy while I've been here at home and trying to, expand that to try and grow the business, because I would love to, it's all handmade stuff. It's not mass produced, so it's, I don't think it's never going to be like a mass scale
But
business,
it's
but
bespoke.
I definitely want it to be
Yeah,
bigger.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I'm working hard on growing it. We'll keep the volume of charities limited. I would rather kind of keep that to this nice sort of small family, and increase those donations. And I keep it to charities that I've actually worked with and that I know and I've seen their work.
Yeah.
We have been approached, certainly over the last sort of 2.5 years, by some well-known charities, like charities that I'm aware of, but I don't know exactly how they work or
Yeah.
have seen the work, or maybe they're too big, and so I don't know how that money is kind of filtered through. So that we've had reach out and want to do a bracelet with us, but I want to keep it, where I know we have the integrity behind who we work with.
Yeah.
And also because we are still quite small, and the charities that we support, even like the smallest donation, they're still so grateful for it. And so you can imagine every time we tally and give those, it's
It's
the best.
incredibly important. It means a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. If it was a huge charity, it's kind of like, here's your donation. They're like, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But on the ground here in Africa, and there's a few that are local to me, and I see their hard work, and like I know what that, especially in US dollars, what that equates to here on the ground, and what it can mean for if it's rhino protection or anti-poaching units, or rehabilitation for the pangolin and stuff. It's nice because it actually goes a lot further here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And because I know, you've worked, a long time with different NGOs and, charity initiatives. I know the most recent one that you're kind of involved is Vital Impacts, which was kind of launched by Amy Vitale. And you've talked about how kind of almost everything you do, as a kind of filmmaker, as a photographer, is you want to kind of spark change. And I kind of wondered, how do you feel, that social media has kind of helped sort of amplify those messages?
Yeah, it's like anything, it's a double-edged sword. There's definitely a lot of spread of, if it's the misinformation. So if it's like animal sanctuaries that aren't sanctuaries, and having your selfie with animals, and it can kind of go that way. But on the flip side of that, it's also an incredible tool to then educate people, and in such a broad way. So for me, it's an incredible tool. Like I don't know how I actually managed without it, because gosh, I remember like trying to build your reputation as a photographer without social media and these visual mediums. I mean, even before websites. I don't remember how we did that. So it just gives so much opportunity to people now. And so I certainly put a lot of focus on kind of trying to post regularly, and trying to take that opportunity to, like, even if it's just little animal facts or interesting things. My work is I've done some kind of reportage style, but for the most part, it's celebrating beauty, and it's I try to focus on the positive.
Yeah.
And so, if I'm sharing on social media, then I want to try and have a little bit of an interesting fact or story about the shot there to engage people, or hopefully maybe spark some of that curiosity, so then maybe they want to look into that animal a bit more. If they've never heard of it, like a pangolin, for example. I know it's facing so many challenges, and still a lot of people don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
And so in this day and age, we have all the tools to educate people, and we're such a visual community now. Like, everything has to be, there's so much volume that you have to break through. It has to be like really striking or really interesting. So that's sort of where my focus is. I really hope that it's doing that in like a little bit of information, but also like entertaining.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that's incredibly important. So I guess one of the sort of final thing is what's exciting for you about the future, and that may not be just the filmmaking, but are there other sort of conservation initiatives? What are you looking forward to?
Yeah, I'm really like I said, hoping to expand Wild in Africa.
Yeah.
Try and get that kind of up to the next level, get more people to know about that and support these charities. And I'd like to do more with in terms of print medium. So at some point, I would love to do like a gallery show, and more of the the print that we're doing. A lot of the conservation, like I'm involved in a lot of those, but I haven't initiated any of those. So that's something that I'd like to look into in future. I really love to at some point do a book of my work that I haven't got around to. And I also, it's one of those things like, do people buy books anymore? I don't know. I do.
I do.
I also do. I mean, I like to support other photographers, so I have loads of photography books, and lots of people that I know whose work I have.
And they're just an amazing way of I think learn, again, when you talked about developing your style, being able to sometimes the social media is so much kind of clutter. When you have a book that you can look at and again understand how I know I think I saw something where you said that you can look at a photograph and almost retro engineer how something was taken. And I think that's really, when you're not able to get out there, also being able to look at a photograph is incredibly important. So
that's absolutely how I learned. Yeah. And there's something about it being tactile. And so whether it's a print, but especially a book. And I know for me, on my journey of learning photography, magazines were incredibly important, and books. And so in terms of things like the reverse engineering, I would really look at, where is the catch light in an eye, and can I see any like fill light, or, just kind of work out, or even just like, why do I like this picture? Is it because of the color or the composition? Or, I definitely was inspired by not just wildlife photography and documentaries, but, fashion photography and architectural photography, and anything that especially was like bold, and that use of negative space definitely influenced me. And so there was definitely a lot of photography books and magazines in that journey. And that was a really hard thing for me when I moved to South Africa, is that I couldn't bring all I had loads of coffee table photography books,
Yeah.
and they're just too heavy. And so I ended up giving them to friends, and I'm like, here you go.
Oh no.
Really hard.
That's torture.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so there's actually, I was thinking about it just the other day. There was this incredible one, which I think is called Rainforest, and it's quite a big format, and it's this beautiful colored feather, and it's a lot of South American wildlife. It was one of my favorite books, and so I think I have to repurchase that here, because now I actually have a place. So
Yeah.
I've been getting the prints and books and things again. So yeah, it's really, I think it's important to have printed things, because like you said, we get so used to scrolling, and so we see it, but we're not maybe
No,
registering
exactly.
it that much, and there's
Yeah.
such a huge volume that we
Yeah.
just, you don't even realize you're doing it. I mean, I do it. So there's something incredible about, yeah, having this book and like taking a moment and appreciating each image as you
Absolutely.
go. So
You should
yeah.
definitely do it, Shannon. I'm definitely there as and when you do.
Oh, good.
Well, listen, it's been absolutely wonderful to see you again after so long. But I've really, our conversation I've really enjoyed as well. So, thank you for doing this, and I hope that I'll definitely be able to see you in person.
Yes.
That's early next year. It would be really, really great to see you and Ross. So
come visit us. You have a place to stay.
well,
And
that's amazing. So
beautiful
thank you,
here.
Shannon, and and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, and say hi to Ross for me.
I will. I'm surprised he hasn't come in, actually.
Well, take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.